Most of you are aware that Corvalis is today the fastest fixed-gear single-engine piston airplane in the market, which we're very, very proud of. And we think that it's time to make that airplane even better. And we have taken that airplane and we've put a new avionics and system in it, redesigned the cockpit from the ground up, taking into account what pilots need and want most. And we did a lot of other items to it that we'll discuss. And we're calling it the Corvalis TTX.
Kirby, on the eve of the annual Lakeland festivities just around the corner, it's obviously time for people to make some announcements, and one of the things we've been waiting for quite avidly for quite some time is what's next for Corvalis. Well, what's next for Corvalis? It seems to be quite substantial. Give me an overview. Okay,
what the Corvalis that we're showing you today, Jim, is the TTX, and it contains the avionics package powered by Garmin, which we refer to as the Intrinzic. The Intrinzic includes wider screens than what we've had before, still retains the automation that we had in the G1000 equipped Corvalis, rather unique in regards to the layout of the avionics themselves, because we're utilizing a touchscreen for inputting data, for flight plans, for bringing up weather, for a number of other functions.
The 2000 was something that everybody talked about, but nobody admitted to.
That's correct. And they did a pretty good job, because I didn't know about it till about 2 months ago. So,
if you fool Kirby, I mean, come on. You know.
Yeah, we did go up to Garmin about a year and a half ago, and they were showing some concepts of it. But actually, I didn't see the full built avionics package until about 2 months ago in our hot lab there in Wichita.
The whole airframe at this point, what is new beyond that with what is apparently going to be called the TTX?
Primarily what we're really looking at is a branding that we have come up with for the flight deck that, again, we refer to as the Intrinzic. The Intrinzic includes not just the avionics, but also the engineering that went in for line of sight, the colors on the tubes, the interior that we have installed now. So it's all-inclusive. So again, we're not branding it as the G2000 Intrinzic, but it's just the Intrinzic flight deck powered by Garmin. And this will continue with some of our other products to include the Citation.
Interesting. Let's talk about some of the simpler stuff first. Interior, what have you done?
Leather. Yeah. What we have primarily done on the interior is to install Citation leather quality seats to it. Okay. We also have a provision that we're going to be able to, if the pilot so desires, to remove the rear seat for a little bit more baggage area. Ooh. A little bit of some other features, such as you can have the stick now, not necessarily in just wood, but leather wrapped, which some people prefer. Mm-hmm. And then we beefed up the console area itself.
Okay. Touchscreen obviously is going to be the big buzzword that's going to typify what everybody thinks about when the 2000 is presented, but just based on one glance, there's so much more here than touchscreen.
That's correct. Actually, it looks busy, but we've eliminated quite a few of the knobs and the buttons. It used to be 125 knobs and buttons that somebody had counted. We're down to probably less than a tenth of that. It's just very simple as far as being able to enter data. If you can run an ATM, you can pretty well run the Intrinzic.
The big question for everybody's going to ask is when and how much?
Okay, that one, what we're looking at right now, second quarter of 2012, okay, and roughly about $734,000.
Any idea at this point as to what kind of production runs you're looking for 12?
As many as possible, but I couldn't give you that number right off the bat.
Now, has anything else changed with the airframe overall?
Paint, we have different paint selections that a customer can choose from, and also interior selections.
And firewall forward, any difference?
No. No change in the firewall.
No need to mess with success?
No, that's true. That's true.
If you own a Cirrus today, or if you are considering the purchase of a new or used aircraft, consider this. Avidyne, in conjunction with the country's leading Cirrus sales and maintenance facilities, has launched the G3R9 program that combines the purchase of a late-model, low-time Cirrus aircraft and the addition of the Avidyne Integra Release 9 avionics suite for much less than you may have thought, and certainly much less than purchasing a brand new aircraft. G3R9, combining the best airframe, best engine, and best avionics for the best value.
Jim, we'll go ahead and give you a tour of the Intrinzic flight deck. What we're looking at on the extreme left side would be the L-3 Trilogy backup instrument, and it's all combined. That is, instead of having 3 separate analog gauges as we had in the past, we now have just the single electronic display. To the right of that is the GDU, Garmin Display Unit, 1400W. The 14 is for 14 inches across, and also the W is for widescreen. And we'll show you why the advantage to that widescreen is here in a little bit with the synthetic vision. To the right of the PFD, we have the multifunction display, and right now we're looking at it in a split screen, so I'm able to look at my navigation map on the left side and traffic map on the right. I can go ahead and select a full screen where it all comes across without the 2 window panes, if you will. As I mentioned, on the left side of the multifunction display, you have the engine indication system, which is very similar to the layout of a turbine airplane, such as the Caravan or Mustang. And to further that turbine look to it, we've installed the Flight Director Autopilot on the bottom of the glare shield, which enables a pilot more of a heads-up view versus what we used to have with the G1000, where we'd have to select the Autopilot Flight Director features down here on the bezel. The primary flight display at the bottom of the bezel still retains soft keys, but the soft key menus are very shallow. Although we have soft keys on the multifunction display, they're non-functional. The reason is so we can have the same part number, whereas the MFD can become a PFD if necessary. We still have a reversionary mode. By simply selecting the red button would drive both of the indications to the standby or startup, reversionary mode, whatever you'd like to refer to it as. And then we'll just take it back off. On the pedestal itself resides the heart of the system, is what I would refer to it as, and that's the touchscreen. Additionally, what Cessna has done is made changes to the switch panel in that we've located up between the panel itself and the touchscreen, allowing the pilot to be able to manipulate those switches a little bit easier. Another addition to the Intrinzic is the method of entering data. Not only can you do it off the touchscreen, which is the preferred method, but in the event that, for whatever reason, that you did lose the touchscreen function, then you can come up here and use the mode selector that we have, which is very similar with the concentric ring and also button functions that we had on the G1000. So if you want to wean yourself slowly going from touchscreen to the mode controller up at the top, you can do it both ways. Okay. As well as we can go ahead and load frequencies, as I'm doing here with the concentric knobs as well. Or I could do it up here with the concentric knobs. Just however you'd like to do it.
Freedom through control. Cirrus has completely reinvented the personal aircraft and the entire experience of owning a personal aircraft. It's a bold new take on private aviation that we call Cirrus Flying 2.0. You set the schedule. You chart the course. You're in control.
Jim, the heart of the Intrinzic flight deck is the Garmin Touchscreen. To give you an example, the very top is what we refer to as the COM bar, where we have the ability to change frequencies for communications and navigation, set our transponder code, and also set the intercom. The next one is the home page, and as you can see, the banner says home. We've got a number of functions for the map display, as well as functions for flight plans, selecting charts and procedures, systems, aircraft systems for setting the air conditioning, setup for changing some of the metrics, and then we also have a button page that allows us functions, for example, going to a full screen on the multifunction display or recalling any messages from the message. Then at the very bottom we have labels for the hard knobs that we have for ranging out, volume, and also using a concentric knob if we wanted to tune the radios using the old-fashioned method of moving or twisting the knobs. An example of being able to utilize the system, let's say the intercom, we would just simply touch intercom, and then depending upon who we wanted to communicate with, we would touch the given arrow. In this particular case, we're showing communication between the pilot and co-pilot, And another situation that we can create is co-pilot to the rear passengers, but nothing going from the passengers to the pilot. In setting a transponder code, simply select the transponder window and then put in the new code that you would receive. You can either go ahead and enter it or just allow it to automatically post itself. Transponder ident is just a matter of pushing the ident feature, and then selecting a COM frequency is just pushing or touching the standby, putting in your new frequency, and then put that where you would like it, whether it goes in the standby or into the active COM. It will show up there, as well as post up on the top of your PFD. In using the home screen for flight planning purposes, we touch the flight plan icon, and then we can touch flight plan options, which will allow us to build a new flight plan in the catalog. So it shows create new flight plan, and this is something that's really unique about the Intrinzic, is that there's no memorization. You go ahead and select the icon, it brings up the next prompt. I'll go select that. It says add waypoint, so we'll just go ahead and do that. We'll say we're going to go from KMIA back here to Lakeland, KLAL, and then we're pretty well done. Shows the directions 330 degrees, 161 miles. It will also show it up on the map display, and from there we can go ahead and continue to add other waypoints, or we can go ahead and begin programming the departure out of Miami or the arrival going into Lakeland, as well as the approach into Lakeland. The way I can do that is select Lakeland and then load an approach, looking at the various approaches that are available here at Lakeland, looking at a list, and if there's more, then I can easily swipe to select the other approach. Let's go with, let's say, the RNAV to 23, the various transitions that I can select from, and you can see that the map has come up as well on the MFD to show that. And let's say we're just going to go from this particular one. We can load the approach, and we can see that it's there in the flight plan as well. And we're pretty well set and ready to go. With the home page, you're going to have map settings that you can change. For example, right now, we could put in data link weather. We have the left side of the MFD highlighted, or what we refer to as in focus, so I can just select, let's say, data link weather, and it would come up. Or I can select TAWS-B and that panel would come up. If I wanted to go ahead and change the field of focus, I would just push the toggle switch over. The blue box and lines enlighten it, and then we can go ahead and just drop in the map and change it there.